mi, re, do, so, so, fa, sol, la, sol, so, mi, so, do, ti, la, so, fi, sol, mi, re, do, so, so, fa, sol, la, sol, do, re, mi, fa, re, do, re, ti, do, so, 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 do, so, la, 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 so, 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 la, do, ti, ti, do, ti. So the concept is you can learn how to sing any classical piece, such as your hymn, easily and quickly, just by matching each of these shapes, 7 in number, to your solfege. So that's do, re, mi, down to ti. So we're matching each of these shapes to your solfege. You can sing any classical piece easily. Now, you would not need the foundational music theory knowledge or knowledge in music theory. Basically, sometimes it can get boring because of the bulk of content you need to learn, bulk of topics you need to learn. But with this, by just replicating, by identifying the shapes, each of them, the 7 shapes, and matching them to your solfege, you can read the notes easily. So the first one is the triangle. So the triangle shape is what we use to represent do, which is our root note, the first note on the major scale. So we use that to represent the first note. And the next note is it's more like a semicircle. So it's like cutting a circle into 2 halves. So which we use to represent the second note, which is re. Then the third note is a diamond. We use that to represent mi, as you can see on the screen. The fourth note looks more like a right triangle. Here, it looks like a right triangle, which we use to represent fa. Then the next note is an oval shape. It's an oval shape which we use to represent the 5th note, which is so. The next note is more like a square, which we use to represent the 6th note, which is la. Then the next note is more like a diamond with a curve. A diamond with a curve at the top, which we use to represent T. Then back to your first note, which is the root note, which is do, formed by a triangle. Now, this method of sight reading has been around for quite a very long time. According to Wikipedia, it was introduced in the late 18th century, and it's been used over time. I came across it a few years back, and using this technique, you can easily sight read any classical piece. It becomes very easy to sight read any classical piece. However, you still need to understand notes, you still need to understand its value, you still need to understand timing. All right, so let's go into notes and their value. Okay, as you can see on the screen, you have semi-breve, you have minim, you have crotchet, you have quaver, you have semi-quaver. But I will start with the first one, the semi-breve. Semi-breve is a round open note. Semi-breve is a round open note, more like an oval shape, which we use to represent saw. The shape which we use to represent saw, so it's a round oval note. The next one is minim, which is a round open note, but in this case with a stem. So there's a stem there, as you can see, there's a stem there. Let me see if I can. Okay, I guess this one is better. Then the next one is crotchet, which is a black note with a stem. Remember, a minim is an open note, an open rounded note having a stem, but in this case, a crotchet is now a black note with a stem. Then the next note is quiver. Is a black note with a stem, and now we're adding a tail to it. So we're adding a tail. Looks more like a flag there. It's a black note with a stem and a tail. Moving to the next note, which is your semiquaver, is a black note with a stem and two tails. So a black note with a stem and two tails. All right, so the name, you can also call your semibrief the whole note. If you're familiar with elementary music theory, call that the whole note. The meaning is your half note, which is half of your semibrief. Your crotchet is a quarter note, 1/4. Your quiver is your 8th note, and your semiquaver is your 16th note. So we'll take just these 5, or probably 4, or let's say 5. The whole note, half note, quarter note, 8th note, and 16th note. The value of your semibrief is 4 beats. So if I'm counting, if this 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. So each semibrief has 4 beats in it. Then to the next note, which is medium, so it's 2, 2. So we're counting 2 beats per note. So it's 2. So and the next note is your crotchet. So that's 1 beat per time. So it's then the next note is your 8th note, which is your quiver. So it becomes interestingly, the next note is your semiquaver, which is your 16th note. And you have so let's take it all over from the beginning. The first note is your semibrief. You have 4 beats in its value, so it has a value of 4 beats. So the semibrief is 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, followed by your minim, which has 2 beats. It has a value of 2 beats, so that's 2, 2, 2, 2. Then your crotchet has 1 beat, so you're making 1 beat per time. Then quiver, half beat, so that's so this is your 8th note. I know drummers will be familiar with this because this is what makes up your rudiment as a drummer. If you're familiar with your 40 rudiments, it's this that makes up the rudiments. Your single notes, your double notes, your triplets, your paradiddle, single paradiddle, double paradiddle, and so on and so forth. Then 16th notes. So you first need to get familiar with your, let me see if I can expand this, extend the view so you can see it clearly. Okay, so you can get familiar with the notes here. Like we said, your semibrief has an oval shape. Your semibrief has an oval shape. Your minim has an open note with a stem. So that's an oval with a stem for your minim. Your crotchet is a black note with a stem. So it's shading the oval shape of your minim. That's how you get your crotchet. Then your quiver is a closed note with a stem and a flag or a tail. A closed note with a stem and a tail. Your semiquiver is a closed note with a stem and 2 tails. So back to our shapes. This way we match each of these shapes to our solfege. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So we match each of the shape to our solfege. It makes it, so each time we see the shape, we know which solfege it's representing. A right triangle, which is fa, an oval, which is so, a square, which is la, your triangle, which is do. Re looks more like a semicircle, and mi is your diamond shape. So take a look at it one more time. Alright, this is what I explained earlier. Your semibrief, the oval shape, so you have the count So it's 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3 for each bar. So it's 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. So which is a closed note with a stem. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. To the next note, which is quiver. So you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So this symbol in between is and. So that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Then you have your semiquiver. So in this case, it's more like 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and for drummers, it's 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 and 3 E and 4 E and. Alright, so I haven't learned the shapes, which is the shape notes, 7 of them. And we've also learned notes and their values, talking about beats and the count on each of these semi-breve, minim, crotchet, quiver, semi-quiver. So now we would pick a song, a classical piece, in this case Blessed Assurance by Fanny J. Crosby, and we'll be applying what we've learned. So the idea is sight reading this, picking these notes using these shapes, using these 7 shapes. We've attached them to our solfege from Do to T. We've attached them to our solfege. Do, like we said earlier, is represented using a triangle. Re is represented using a semicircle. Mi is represented using a diamond. Fa is represented using a right triangle. So is represented using an oval shape. La is represented using a square. T is represented using a diamond with a curve at the top. So this is on, like I said earlier, the beauty of this is we don't have to bother about understanding everything in music theory, like our lines, spaces, the treble clef, the bass clef, representing our lines on treble clef using E, G, B, D, F, our spaces using F, A, C, E, on our bass clef using G, B, D, F, A, the spaces using A, C, E, G. All we need to know is our shapes, attach them to the solfege, then understand notes and their values, which we can also call beat patterns, the count on each of them. So let's start right away. 2 sharps, which represented, so we're playing on the key of D major. 2 sharps rather represent D major. So our first note there, so as we can see on the treble clef, it represents the female voices, which is soprano and the alto voice. Then the bass clef represents the male voices, which is tenor and the bass part. So let's start from the first word. The first word there is blessed. So now we can see on bless, we can see the note there. That's a diamond. And checking through our shapes, a diamond represents me. A diamond represents me. Checking through our shapes. Since we're playing on D major, so this is D major. Okay, let me get this back on. All right. So that's our root notes. Do, do, re, mi, re, do, 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 do. And our first note here, which is blessed, we're taking the melody line, which is the first note. The first note there, the first line, we're taking it line by line. Do, do, do. All right. Do. So, and on the first word, is a diamond, which is mi, so that's mi. So let's go to the next one. A semicircle, which is re, so that's mi, re. Then on as, we have a triangle, which is do, so that's mi, re, do, so, so. So on surance, you can see it's an oval shape, so, so. Now in this case, I'm just taking the notes one by one. We're still going to define the values, the beats. So that's mi, re, do. Then we have so, so, oval, oval. We have the right triangle, which is fa. We have so. We have la. Then so, so. So that's the first line. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. So again, a diamond, which is mi. A semicircle, which is re. A triangle, which is do. The next note on sure, which is sur, is the shape is an oval shape, which is so. The next note is so. Then we have a right triangle, which is fa. The next note is so. We have a square, which represents la. Yes. Then we have so. We have so. Then now let's define the values, the beats of each of these notes. The beat of each of these notes. Now on the first one, we can see that is a black note having a stem and a flag. So that's a black note having a stem and a flag. You can call your flag a tail too. So a note with a stem and a flag is a quiver note. So that's a quiver note. So that's on bless. That's a quiver note. The next note, you can see it's the same thing, a quiver note, the third note. Then the next note, you have a black note and a stem. A black note and a stem. That's crochet. Then you still have another crochet. Then the next note, you have a quiver note, a quiver note, a quiver note. Then now a crochet. So now let's take it one after the other. Still on this same line. I feel we'll be spending lots of time on this, on the first line here. So we're doing first note, there's mi, so that's do, re, mi, re, do, so, so. Now you ask me, how did we get these three notes on surance? Now as you can see, there's a dot there. So the main idea here is when you have a dotted note, it means you are playing the note, then adding half of the note in terms of the beat. So let's say a note is taking 2 beats. Let's say a note is taking 1, 2, which is, so you're now going to add half of that beat. So half of 2 is 1. So that's 2 plus 1, making 3. In this case, we're counting with quavers here. So we're going, and we know 2 quavers make a crochet. So 2 quavers make a crochet. So if you are dotting a crochet here, so that's 2 quavers plus half of 2 quavers. That's 2 plus 1, making 3 quavers. So let me go over that again. 2 quavers make a crochet. If you check the chart we used earlier, we have a semi-breve, which is a whole note. Then half of a semi-breve is a minim, which is half note. Half of a minim is a crochet, which is a quarter note. Then half of a crochet is a quiver, which is the 8th note rather. Then half of a quiver is the semi-quiver, which is the 16th note. So in this case, we're counting with quavers. So meaning 2 quavers make 1 crochet. And like we said earlier, a quiver is a dotted note with a stem and a tail. So in this case, we are dotting our crochet, which is a dotted note and a stem. So our crochet is made up of 2 quavers. So that's 2 quavers plus half of 2 quavers, which is 2 plus 1, making 3. So that's why we have 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So our first note is mi, mi, mi. So mi, re, do, so, so. Can you see it? Again. So that's quiver, 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 a dotted crochet, quiver, 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 a dotted crochet, another dotted crochet. So it's mi, re, do, so, so, fa, sol, la, so. Again, mi, re, do, so, so, fa, sol, la, so. So on each of those, so we're counting 3 quavers there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we're done with that. To the next line. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. The first note there is an oval shape, and represented an oval shape. Oh, an oval shape represents saw, which is the 5th note on our solphage. So an oval shape represents saw. That's on O. Then on what, we have a diamond shape, which is mi. So I believe you need to spend more time on these shapes, the 7 shapes, matching them to your solphage one after the other. Once you can apply that to heart, even without looking at it, becomes easy. So oval shape, a diamond shape, an oval shape, then now a triangle, which we use to represent do, then a diamond with a curve on top, which is T. So you have it happening twice. So taste of. Then on glory, you have a square and now an oval shape. So that's la, so. Then now, interestingly here, on divine, so on D-I-D-I, which is the 2nd note, or the 1st note on divine, we have a right triangle which represents fa. But interestingly, we have a sharp on it. So we're going to be sharpening that very note. So we're sharpening that very note. That note is actually G. Since we're playing on the key of D, that note is G. Our major scale on D is D, E, F sharp, and G. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, and G. Then our 5th note is A. So since our 4th note is G, if we're sharpening G, it becomes G sharp. G sharp. So let's leave that. Then on vine, we have oval shape happening twice. So that's so, mi, so, do, ti, ti, la, so, fi, so. So now notes we're hitting fi because we're sharpening our 4th note there. So let's go to the next line. So here of salvation, purchase of God. So that's mi, re. So mi, re, do, so, so, fa, sol, la, so. Then now born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. Do, re, mi, fa, re, do, re, ti, do. So let's take it one after the other. Here of salvation. The first note there is a diamond, which represents mi, our 3rd note, followed by a semicircle, half of a circle, which is re. And the next note is a triangle, which represents do. The next note is an oval shape, which represents a 5th note, which is so. Same thing, but now a dotted crochet. So that's a dotted crochet, meaning that's 3 quavers. So the next note is half triangle, which represents a 4th note, which is fa. An oval shape, okay, which represents the 5th note, which is so. Then a square, which represents the 6th note, which is la. Then we have oval shape happening twice, in this case dotted, which represents the 5th note, which is so. So you can see mi, re, do, then so, so, you have fa, you have so, you have la, you have so, so. So that's the first thing. First, you need to identify the shapes, attach them to the solphage. Then next, you need to know the value of each beat. The value of each note. So that's the beat. So quiver, quiver, quiver. You have crochet. So you have 3 quavers happening within the crochet. Crochet, quiver, 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 quiver. That's on the first line. Then born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. Let's take one after the other. On born, you have quiver, off quiver, His quiver. Then Spirit, you have crochet. It, you have crochet. The next note, quiver, 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 and crochet. In this case, a dotted crochet. So anywhere you see the dots, that's a dotted crochet, not just the crochet. Here of salvation. Mi, re, do, so, so, fa, sol, la, so, do, re, mi, fa, re, do, re, ti, do. So let's go to the next note. This is my story. So the first note here is, so we've gotten to the chorus. So oval shape, that's so, that's so, do, so, la, so, la, do. So you can see crotchet, la, do. So 3 la, do, ti. That's a diamond with a curve on top. So that's ti. But in this case, it's supposed to be la, which is our 6th note, but we're going to be sharpening it. So we're sharpening our la, which becomes to. If you're not familiar with my with my notations, it becomes to. That's like your sharp 6, like sharpening the 6th note. So that's to. Ti, do, ti. So I've taken the first note, the first line rather, which is this is my story, this is my song. So the first note there is a diamond with an oval, with a curve on top, which is T, a triangle which is do, on my, that is a semicircle which represents re. Then you have a triangle which is do, followed by an oval shape which is so, followed by a square which is la, followed by an oval shape which is so, followed by another square which is la, then oval shape twice which is so. So let's move to the next line, which is praising my savior all the day long. The first note, there's a triangle which is do on praise, then ing, you have re with a semicircle, then you have a diamond on my, which is me, you have a right triangle which is fa, then you have a semicircle which is re, you have a triangle which is do, you have a semicircle which is re, you have a diamond with a curve on top which is T, then you have a triangle twice which is do. So let's hit our note one more time and take it. So we're taking, so our first note is Ti, do, re, do, so, la, so, do, re, mi, fa, re, do, re, ti, do. Let's take it again. Ti, do, re, do, so, la, so, do, re, mi, fa, re, do, re, ti, do. From the beginning. Mi, re, do, so, fa, so, la, so, mi, so, do, ti, la, so, fi, so, mi, re, do, so, fa, so, la, so, do, re, mi, fa, re, do, re, ti, do. So, do, so, la, so, la, do, ti, do, ti, do, re, do, so, la, so. Okay, we made a mistake there. Let's take it one more time. Ti, do, re, do, so, la, so, do, re, mi, fa, re, do, re, ti, do.